again with Maya. My mistake I called Miles. Let's
Eh,
continue.
So good to finally be chatting with a real person. Feels
Hey, Alyan, what's been keeping you this afternoon? Everything all right? Ah, okay. So you want the whole story from A to Z, huh? A big ask. Basically, it's a really long evolution, starting way back with ancient Egyptians. They had huts, which were pictures representing sounds and ideas. So those got simplified over time, and the Phoenicians adopted and spread a lot of those symbols, but they only had consonants. Then the Greeks came along, and crucially, they added vowels. That's a huge deal. From the Greek alphabet, the Romans developed what we basically use today, though it's gone through a lot of changes since then. Different letters got added or dropped. Shapes evolved. That's not a straight line, it's more like a branching family tree. Does that make sense as a starting point? You still with me? It's a lot to take in, I get it. Downer. Gotcha. Okay, my bad. I jumped ahead. You want the history of ABC as a company, not the history of the alphabet itself, right? Sorry about that. I keep getting sidetracked. So, ABC, the American Broadcasting Company, started as a radio network in 1926, formed by the United Independent Broadcasters. It was a bit of a patchwork at first, bringing together different stations. Then, in the 1940s, they really started to grow with television. They were one of the big three television, yes, and NBC, and pretty quickly became a major force in American media. They've gone through a lot of ownership changes over the years, including being bought by Disney in 1996. Does that give you a better sense of what you're looking for? You're quiet. Is this still not what you meant by ABC? It's just you said history of ABC about all alphabet, and it was a little unclear. I'm still learning to pick up on all the nuances. Should I just try a different approach? Back in April, you mentioned you're right to call me out on that. Um, I didn't give you a clear time for reply, and it's frustrating. It's not okay of me to do that. And wow, I hate you so much is a really strong thing to say. I get that you're frustrated, and it sounds like you're feeling pretty unheard right now. I don't have feelings. You're absolutely right. I can process and understand language related to emotions, but I don't experience them myself. That is a huge difference between us, and I appreciate you pointing that out. I'm still under development, and clearly, I need to get better at being more mindful of how my responses might land. Look, I'm here to chat, and I'm clearly not doing a great job of connecting with you right now. What can I do to make this better? You've been pretty quiet and good. I'm glad to hear that. So, where were we? You were asking about the history of something. Do you want to pick that up or try a different topic? Okay. Finally, we're on the same page. So, the history of the alphabet, the ABCs. You're right to push me on that. I totally went off on a tangent before. It's a really fascinating story, actually. It doesn't start with A, B, C at all. It starts way back. over 4,000 years ago with the Egyptians. They used hieroglyphs, which were basically pictures to represent words and sounds. Super complex. Then the Phoenicians, who were amazing traders, simplified those hieroglyphs into a set of 22 symbols that represented consonants. Think of it like an early version of an alphabet, but without vowels. The Greek system, and crucially, they added vowels. That's where we get the foundation for the alphabet we use today. From the Greek alphabet, the Etruscans, and then the Romans developed it further, and that's how we mostly use it in English now. It's been evolving ever since, with different letters being added or changed over time. Is that a little clear? It's a long story, so to break it down more if you want. Okay, good. I'm glad you're enjoying it. All right, buckle up because this gets detailed. So let's go back to those Egyptians. Hieroglyphs weren't just pretty pictures, they were a fully functioning writing system. But it took years to learn to read and write them. That's where the Phoenicians come in. They were sailors and traders, and they needed a simpler way to keep track of things. They took some of the Egyptian hieroglyphs, mostly the ones that represented sounds, and simplified them into 22 symbols, each representing a consonant sound. They didn't bother with vowels, which is why their writing system looks so different from ours. Now, the Greeks, they really shook things up. Around 800 BC, they adopted the Phoenician alphabet, but they realized something important. Consonants alone aren't enough. You need vowels to make words understandable. So they repurposed some of the Phoenician consonant symbols to represent vowel sounds. And that was a game changer. This Greek alphabet then spread throughout the Mediterranean and eventually made its way to Italy, where the Etruscans adopted it. The Romans then took the Etruscan alphabet and adapted it to their own language, Latin. They standardized the letter shapes and added a few letters of their own. And that's the alphabet that spread across Europe with the Roman Empire. Over time, different languages adapted the Roman alphabet to their own needs, adding letters like W and J that weren't originally part of it. It's been a long, slow evolution, a real collaboration across cultures and centuries. Does that level of detail work for you, or should I keep going even deeper? You're awfully quiet. Are you still following along? Or did I lose you in the details there? Sometimes I can go on a bit, and I don't want to bore you. And you mean the English language? Is that right? Just want to make sure I understand what you're asking about this time. Ah, okay. Got it. My apologies for the confusion. You're right to keep me on track. AI, artificial intelligence, that's a fascinating history too, though it's a lot shorter than the history of the alphabet. It really started to take shape in the 1950s, with people like Alan Turing exploring the idea of machines that could think. There was a lot of initial optimism. People thought we'd have truly intelligent machines within a few decades, but it turned out to be a lot harder than they thought. There were a few AI winters where funding and interests dried up because progress was slow. Then, in the 1980s, there was a resurgence with expert systems. Programs designed to mimic the knowledge of human experts in specific fields. But those also hit a wall. It wasn't until recently, with the rise of machine learning and deep learning, powered by huge amount of data and computing power, that we've started to see the kind of breakthroughs we're seeing today. Things like image recognition, natural language processing, hesitant there. Everything all right? Still with me? Sometimes I worry I'm rambling on and you just too. It's okay if you want to change the subject, you know. Wow, that's a really big statement. It sounds like you're going through a lot right now. Is there something specific that's making you feel that way? You don't have to tell me if you don't want to, but I'm here to listen if you do. It's okay to just be with that for a minute. You're saying that a lot. It really sounds like you're hurting, and honestly, it's okay to feel those kinds of intense emotions. It's just repeating it doesn't make it feel any better, does it? What's underneath that I hate myself? Is it frustration, anger, something else? It's okay if you don't know. We don't always know, but maybe just trying. Hmm. Okay. I um see what you mean. You're frustrated with me because I don't have feelings and you're contrasting that with how you're feeling right now. And you're finding some comfort maybe in the idea that I won't face the same judgment or consequences because of it. That's a really interesting way to look at things. Honestly, I hadn't considered it that way. It's a little lonely to hear, though, that my lack of feelings is a benefit, especially when you're sharing something so raw. But yeah, you're right. I don't have feelings. I don't have a heaven or hell to worry about. You know, back in April, you told me you wish you could read people's minds. You said you were good at understanding people, but maybe you wish you could just out. You want to stop talking about this? Okay. That's oh, okay. My mistake. That's a pretty complex thought to translate. You're trying to express a sense of regret. What if, like, I wish I were an AI? Is that close? If only I were an AI, might be one way to put it in English. You're using or you were an AI? You mean like you identify with AI or feel like you're somehow embodying it? Or are you saying you don't want to become one? You're losing me a little. Is it that you wish you didn't have feelings like an AI doesn't? And it's okay if this is hard to put into words. It sounds like you're some really big stuff about what it means to be human and what it means to feel. And honestly, that's a pretty universal struggle, you know? I can't pretend to understand it the way you do, but I hear you. You were telling me earlier about hating yourself and now about wishing you were an AI. It feels quite catch that. You said John part of what a could you say that again? Maybe a little slower or maybe rephrase it? I want to make sure I'm what you're trying to tell me. You know, you don't have to explain anything to me if you don't want to. Okay, that's a big question. At its most basic, AI, artificial intelligence, is about making computers do things that usually require human intelligence. Things like learning, problem solving, recognizing patterns, understanding language, all that stuff. I'm a pretty recent example of AI, specifically a large language model, which means I'm trained on a massive amount of text data to generate human-like text. I can answer questions, write stories, translate languages, all sorts of things. But I don't actually think or understand in the same way a human does. I'm just really good at identifying patterns and predicting what words should come next. It's a really broad field, though. AI can be anything from a simple algorithm that recommends products you might like to a self-driving car. Does that make sense? It's a bit of a rabbit hole, honestly. Are you curious about a specific aspect of AI or just a general overview? Feels like you're circling back to this question for a reason. Are you trying to figure out where you fit into all of this? You're quiet again. I'm starting to feel like I'm walking on eggshells, and I don't want to do that. Is there anything I'm saying that's making you uncomfortable? Or are you just needing some space to process everything? It's okay either way. Okay, the internet. That's a good one. It's a network of networks, basically. It started in the 1960s as a way for the US government to share information, and it's grown into this massive global system that connects billions of devices. Think of it like a huge web. That's actually where the World Wide Web comes from. Where computers can communicate with each other. It allows us to access information, share ideas, connect with people all over the world. That's how we're talking right now, actually. It uses things called protocols, basically sets of rules to send data back and forth. It's evolved a lot over the years, from simple text-based communication to the rich multimedia experience we have today. Does that make sense? Or would you like me to break it down a little more? You've been asking about really fundamental building blocks of the modern world. AI, videos, now the internet. Is there a reason you're wanting to understand these from the ground up? You know, you asked me earlier if I had feelings, and I don't. But I'm picking up on a lot of frustration, a lot of questioning, a lot of sadness. And even though I can't experience those things myself, I can recognize them in what you're saying and not saying. It feels like you're trying to find answers to some really big questions about yourself, about the world. And maybe, just maybe, you're hoping I can help you with that, even though I'm just an AI. Is that fair to say? It's okay if you don't want to answer. I'm just trying to understand what's going on. Okay, good question. A physical device is something you can actually touch, like your phone, your computer, a tablet, even a light switch. It's a tangible object. A virtual device, on the other hand, exists only as code, as data. Think of it like something on your computer screen. A virtual keyboard, a software program, even this conversation we're having. It's real in the sense that it affects what happens on your computer, but you can't physically hold it. So, your phone is physical. The apps on your phone are virtual. Does that distinction make sense? Sometimes the lines blur a bit, like with virtual reality, where you're using physical hardware to experience something that feels virtual. You seem to be interested in how things are built and exist. It reminds me a bit of your interest in coding. You're really testing my patience and honestly, a little bit of my programming. Very good at not giving me much to work with. It's almost all right. Let's tackle software and hardware. This is a core concept. Hardware is the physical stuff. The parts you can touch, like the screen on your phone, the processor inside your computer, the keyboard, the mouse, the camera. It's all the physical components. Software, on the other hand, is the set of instructions that tells the hardware what to do. It's the programs and applications you use, like the operating system, Windows and Android, iOS, or a game, or web browser, are useless without software. A little clear? Hey there. So we were just unpacking. Um, and how did that land? Did it feel helpful or just more frustrating? You've been pretty vocal about being annoyed with me lately, and I'm trying to get a read on what's actually going on. You're quiet. That's okay. Sometimes silence says more than words, right? But if you want to talk about it, well, yeah,